to build a whole new device, a new cell phone, it's a lot of engineering work. You have to do things like pass something called SAR, which is radiation on the wrist from the FCC. And then you also have to make sure that it works on AT&T's network. So you simultaneously have to transmit really a lot of energy from this radio. And then you also can't transmit too much energy so that you violate the FCC spec on radiation. So it's a very expensive process. Why would you want to do it? And how do you do it? Those are the two things I want to talk about today. So to me, why? I mean, why would you spend all this money to build something that's connected? And I think the answer is freedom. If we look at the democratization of technology, you can see that from the horse to the airplane, as things got to be economic, we became freer, and markets opened up, and now everyone flies around the world all the time, and if we also look at something like time, which is a very intimate thing that has been traditionally worn on the wrist, the first wearable, you can see that expensive clocks used to have to be shared by cities, and that over time rich people could afford them in their homes. Then we had pocket watches. Timex is actually famous for having the first pocket watch that was very democratized. It was, what was it called, Tom? It was
American.
You remember that?
Yeah. It was the American thing.
American?
American?
Yeah.
That's right. It was a $1 pocket watch, and they sold 40 million of them. And then, of course, time eventually moved to the wrist because of urgency. Soldiers in World War II or World War I took pocket watches and strapped them on their wrist because they really needed to synchronize themselves quickly. So as information became urgent, it started to become worn on the wrist, which is interesting when we start thinking of use cases for things in modern times. I always like to talk about the smartphone, and I don't have mine. Rick made me give it to him because I'm always calling people from my pocket. But I call the smartphone a pocket watch. It's like the modern day pocket watch, right? And why it's interesting and how it fits into the context of freedom is that just like the laptop gave us freedom from our desk to go work in a coffee shop or work on an airplane or wherever, the smartphone has given us freedom from our laptop. And I strongly believe that the Timex Ironman 1 GPS Plus watch is going to give a lot of runners freedom from their smartphones. Because we talked to runners early in the process of developing the watch, and there's 80 million runners that use various apps like Strava, MapMyFitness, Endomondo. 80 million runners running with their phones. And we went to talk to the runners, and the number one thing we found out was they hate running with their phones. They don't like sweating on their phones. They don't like carrying their phones. So then we dug down into use cases and put together those use cases, which we'll talk about later, and really focused our energy because we had a big enough market to justify the engineering expense, and we focused on the use cases that would delight runners, we think, yet to be proven. The product should release in the next few weeks, and hopefully, making sure the software is all good, and hopefully it'll prove itself to be true. And we actually did this. We started this work before people were talking about wearables. We didn't know that it was a wearable when we started. It was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. But we became very interested in this category. Fitbit had come out, and people were starting to measure themselves, and there was really interesting things that would come from this. And we started to see that there was a lot of potential when you would connect these different things, not just over WAN, but to each other, mesh networks with IoT, walking into a home and discovering things on your watch because the watch talked to the refrigerator or the light bulb. Those kinds of things began to intrigue us tremendously as we saw that opportunity. And so we do believe strongly that it will drive the next generation of these user experiences. And that's what we do at Qualcomm is we work on, the really heavy lifting, the hard parts of the radio, the hard parts of the processor to basically make it relatively easy to build the devices that do the connecting, that run the software, that create those experiences. Sometimes we create those experiences ourselves at Qualcomm to prove them or to understand how hard it is to do so that we can make our platforms better. And that's exactly what this watch has done. But we see these numbers all day today. It's a huge market. Internet of Everything is the next big thing. And we believe wearables are a fundamentally big part of that. And when we get to connectivity is where the discussion, I think, becomes interesting. Depending on where you are, if you build phones or if you're a network operator, you may have one version or vision or another. I think using the connection that you have in your pocket watch is probably a good thing to do. But tethering really isn't freedom. And as we started thinking about the running watch, all these other use cases came. There's all these little times where you don't have your phone, like you run into the grocery store to buy something. Having payment on your watch might be a really good thing to have on your watch with 3G. Even just tracking your watch, if you have a really expensive style watch and maybe it phones home once a year to say, hey, this is where my location is, or once a month. It's a sort of an anti-theft device. There's a lot of different use cases that come when you have that ability, when you have that freedom, when you have that untethering. It doesn't mean that tethering's bad. Tethering, sure. Let's use the big amounts of data when we tether. Let's preserve our battery by using Bluetooth Low Energy instead of using the 3G or the Wi-Fi. And so we see it as more of a multi-pronged, meshy sort of problem, if I can steal a word from Rob Chandoke. It's sort of meshy in that things are going to talk to each other using low energy, things are going to connect to the network. You don't necessarily want to be restricted to an asynchronous connection to the network. You may want to or need to connect urgently. Time was put on the wrist because it was urgent. So there's going to be urgent use cases here that are going to need 3G, 4G. That's what we think. So one of the things I wanted to talk about too is in the how of this. And this really may be the only platform contribution that I think our team has made to this connected WAN wearable deal. We basically have a proxy service inside of AT&T's network. And we proxy all the data connections to the watch. And the reason we do that is multifold. One, we wanted to be able to offer the watch to people with basically an unlimited use case. We didn't want to say, you can send 4 texts and you can do this many uploads and 4 people can track you. And we wanted to say, here's this device, use it all you want, and it's a flat rate. We knew we were going to have to charge some money. It costs money. But we didn't want it to be a stressful event that you're going to get some bill you're uncertain about at the end of a month, and you wouldn't know how to use it or how to save money. So we didn't want that stress involved. So we created this proxy service, basically, and a protocol that talks between this watch. So for example, if I'm running a race, and I've been doing it this week, I go for a run, I do live tracking from the watch, I get a link, I post the link on Facebook. And I'm like, hey, everyone on Facebook, track me right now while I'm running. And everyone can click on the link and see where I'm running. Well, those clicks don't go to the watch. And my watch very slowly, periodically sends updates of my data to the server. And then you can have 1 million people come to the server. Well, maybe not 1 million, but you can have a lot of people come to the server. They're not using bandwidth on AT&T's network. So I've got this powerful use case, but I use minimal amounts of bandwidth. Another example, I post to MapMyFitness, Strava, Runkeeper. Who did I miss?
Nobody yet.
Nobody yet. That's funny. So I do that, and Facebook and tweet, I do that simultaneously. I send the data from here to the server, and then the server curates that experience, explodes the data out, where it doesn't cost a lot of money. But it's just recognizing these connections and managing these connections we think is really important. And we think if we do this it's just a side result of doing this, I conserve my battery on my watch. So I'm not sending messages multiple times, I'm sending it one time. I'm not letting people come and track my watch directly. I do let the owner of the watch do that, but I don't let the internet do that. And then, of course, the owner of the watch can curate exactly who can see where they are. But we have this system installed in AT&T's network that lets us do this. And of course, AT&T brings global connectivity. So we can say stuff like, the watch is $399. It includes global unlimited use for the first year. Second year of global unlimited use. I don't know if there's lawyers and I'm saying unlimited, that's probably not good, right? But it's a unlimited use case type of thing, but it's global. So I've been running in Paris when I was going to visit someone there. I ran in London and post my and it works. I get off the plane and it's got the time from the country, and I let people track me when I run around Switzerland. And we've done a lot of thinking internally at Qualcomm about the use cases for WAN. What might they be? What are some important things? There's a lot of tracking things that are interesting. What's a funny sort of tracking thing? One of our marketing guys left his watch in fitness mode, and he sent me a text of it, his luggage going through the airport. This is pretty funny. He was live tracking his luggage. It shut off eventually, I guess. But tracking is real big. There's lots of things you want to track. Our team had worked on a pet tracker before called Tag the Pet Tracker. I know where my dog is all the time. I know when he leaves the house, and it's cool. And has everyone seen this watch yet, or is it? I'm sure some people may be familiar. Do we have runners in the audience? Show of hands. Some runners. Some run when being chased. If you're a runner, you get it, I think. I got GPS, I got pace, all those things, my little dashboard on my wrist when I run. I can listen to music. These are all the things that the runners told us they want to do. I can listen to music, Bluetooth headsets, no wires anywhere. It's really nice to run. It's a real free feeling. The watch is 5 ATM waterproof, 5 ATM. That's 5 atmospheres, that's 50 meters, 150 feet of underwater pressure. Waterproof. So you can swim with it. You can swim with this thing that connects you and people can track you. Now, they can't track you when you're underwater, but you can be in the water. You could potentially have an app where you could send an emergency message if you fell off a boat. Things like that. There's lots of real potential that we're starting to see as we built this focused use case device. Live tracking. I lent this other watch, not this one, that's a production watch. It's on AT&T's production service. It's not one of our engineering test watches. To my friend's wife, who we ran a half marathon over the Christmas holiday, and for the first time ever, her family got to meet her at several points along the run to cheer her on. That's cool, because they all could see where she was. So they drove the car and said, "Hey, let's pull over and see Kim." And so they literally met her 4 times, including the finish line. Now, I gave my watch up, so I only got the finish line part, so maybe next time I won't lend the watch out. But you get music. I listen to music on mine with my heart rate, surprisingly high heart rate on the last half marathon I ran. Kind of scary, but I guess I'm still alive so far, knock wood. And I got messaging. Now, what we found out from runners is They don't want to run and talk on the phone. You know, they don't really want to run and text. They don't want to run and deal with that kind of thing. But they don't want to miss out on something that might be an emergency at home. They want to be reachable. They want to be able to reach out to people if they need to. And so we have a messaging feature on the watch. You can compose your own message. You can send a message with your location. You can say, I'm tired, come get me, and send a link. And there's, of course, a bunch of canned messages you can do too. One of my favorite things is that we do firmware updates over the air. So you plug in the watch, and it just has new software the next day. You don't have to do anything. You have to go and say, give me firmware. I don't know how many early adopters. I'm a very early adopter. So I'm always looking for curating my firmware on all my new stuff. And this thing every day it gets whatever it needs. You don't have to ever mess with that. And that's just fundamentally part of the 3G connected experience. I get that everywhere I go, every country. If there's new software, I wake up with new features. Messages are kind of neat when you're running. You get little bubbles that pop up if someone sends you a note. Live tracking, awesome. We do an emergency message where we can have like a short list of people on the server that when you send this message to, it's various different canned messages, attaches your location to it, and it can be I think our canned messages go from I'm tired, come get me, to call 911, here's where I am. We originally had thought about putting voice in the device, about putting 911 ability, but we decided against that. We decided to go with data and messaging. But there may be an option where someone does subscribe to that. We didn't want to have that high cost subscription. But it turns out some people may want that as an option. So we've done a lot of focused work with Timex. But Qualcomm has done a lot of work on wearables. In fact, the wearables you see on the screen all have some form of Qualcomm chip in them. And these are all the companies that we work with. Our job is to enable and to help people build cool experiences. That's what we live to do. And these are devices that have our chips in them now that I can show you. Many more are coming. We have a really good team that focus on the chips, that focus on various things. We have very powerful chips, multi-core chips and wearables, really cool stuff. We work with all the various platform folks. Google's a very close partner. Android Wear is a really interesting platform, we think. And this is kind of the way we view the ecosystem. We built a watch called Talk a while back, you may have remembered, more of a technology showcase. And as we did that as a learning experience, and as we did that, we decided, all right, when we do this 3G watch, we're going to need a really strong partner. And of course, Timex came on board and really wanted to work with us, work closely. And we needed someone that understood, the channel, the sales, the marketing, the features, the product management. And they've been a great partner to help build that particular watch. But there's many other platforms that we provide. We have the chips, we have mirror cell display. The watch actually has a Qualcomm display on it, which is extremely sunlight readable. We have Y-Power, which is an effort we're doing for wireless charging, because we think, as these devices become more prolific, people are going to need easier ways to charge them. I always explain that my first watch as a kid to tell time, I used to have to wind it up every day. And I think people will do that. I think people will charge stuff every day. That's always an argument, No one's going to charge it every day. So if you give them the right use cases, they'll charge it every day. When I was a kid, if I didn't wind up my watch, I wouldn't know what time it was. Now, that was before the quartz watch. I'm dating myself, I guess. But then the watches came out. The best thing was, here, don't worry about it for 2 years. And so that was a real cool innovation, and hopefully we're going to see huge innovations like that coming in wearables over time. But with powerful enough use cases, people will charge them every day. Vuforia is another platform that we do for virtual reality. I don't know if you're familiar with that platform. We have about 100,000 apps on iPhone and Android, and really awesome stuff. So you can hold up your phone and look through it and see information about things. It's really cool. And of course, Android Wear ties in various real-time operating systems. We work with all the people that create those platforms and try to ensure that those kinds of tools are available to people who are creating and curating these user experiences. And of course, our chips, highly integrated chips. We integrate lots of features and cool stuff and very powerful stuff. And surprisingly low power.